Hello there, and welcome back to the Sleepy Ocean. Tonight, we are going to drift alongside the true giants of this world, creatures so immense that their very existence seems to defy the laws of biology. We are journeying into the open blue to swim with the Leviathans, the great whales that patrol the deep with a silence and majesty that has humbled humanity for thousands of years. To begin, we must simply try to comprehend the scale of the largest of them all, the blue whale, a creature that is not only the largest animal alive today, but the largest animal that has ever lived in the history of the Earth, surpassing even the greatest of the dinosaurs. Imagine a creature that grows to a length of 100 feet, a living island of slate blue skin. Its tongue alone weighs as much as an entire elephant, a massive muscular organ that rests on the floor of a mouth large enough to hold 400 people. Yet, despite this terrifying size, its throat is so narrow that it could not swallow a beach ball, a gentle giant designed by evolution to feed on the smallest of life forms. Tiny krill, filtering the ocean through plates of baleen in a paradox of size where the largest consumer relies on the smallest prey. The heart of this Leviathan is a testament to the power required to move life through such a colossal frame. It is the size of a small car, a Volkswagen Beetle made of muscle and valve, weighing heavily in the chest cavity. The aorta, the main artery leaving this heart, is large enough that a human child could crawl through it. A tunnel of blood pumping with a slow, rhythmic force. This heart does not beat with the frantic pace of smaller animals. It beats only a few times per minute when the whale is diving, a slow, booming drum that can be heard by acoustic equipment from miles away. When a blue whale exhales, the spray from its blowhole shoots 30 feet into the air, a geyser of atomized water and hot breath that creates its own momentary cloud, a visible sign of the immense engine working beneath the waves. This is biology pushed to its absolute limit, a creature that exists at the very edge of what physics will allow a heart to pump and a skeleton to support. While the blue whale is the master of size, the sperm whale is the master of the deep, a true Leviathan of the abyss that carries within its body one of the most mysterious organs in the natural world. The massive, blocky head of the sperm whale accounts for nearly 1/3 of its total body length, giving it a profile that is instantly recognizable and entirely unique. Inside this box-like skull sits the spermaceti organ, a vast tank filled with a semi-liquid waxy oil. For centuries, whalers believed this substance was the whale's semen, giving the animal its misleading name. But modern science has revealed it to be something far more sophisticated. It is a biological machine used for buoyancy control and sound generation. The oil inside this organ changes density with temperature. By circulating cold seawater through its nasal passages, the whale can cool the wax, causing it to solidify and become denser, helping the whale sink without swimming. When it wants to rise, it warms the oil with blood, melting it back into a buoyant liquid, allowing the Leviathan to lift effortlessly toward the surface, like a massive, living hot air balloon of the sea. This enormous head is also the most powerful biological speaker system on the planet, capable of generating sounds that are louder than a jet engine at takeoff. The sperm whale produces a sound known as a click, a short, sharp burst of noise that travels through the water for miles. This sound is generated by a pair of lips located deep within the head, known as monkey lips or phonic lips. When air is forced through these lips, they snap together, creating a vibration. But unlike our voice, which projects outward immediately, this sound is directed backward into the spermaceti organ. It travels through the oil, bounces off a mirror-like air sac against the skull, and is then focused forward through a fatty lens called the melon. This complex internal journey amplifies and directs the sound into a tight, coherent beam, turning the whale's forehead into a biological sonar dish that can scan the ocean with terrifying precision. The intensity of this sound is difficult to overstate. A sperm whale click can reach 230 decibels underwater. To put that in perspective, a sound of 150 decibels is enough to burst human eardrums, and the threshold for pain is much lower. If a human diver were swimming directly in front of a sperm whale when it unleashed a full-power click, the vibration would be strong enough to heat the water molecules in the diver's body and potentially cause physical trauma. There is a theory, debated but fascinating, that the whale uses this sound not just for navigation, but as a weapon. It is possible that the whale can focus a beam of intense sound at its prey, stunning a squid or fish with a sonic blast that leaves it paralyzed and easy to capture. In the dark, silent world of the deep, the Leviathan may hunt with a shout that acts like a hammer. When these great whales prepare to leave the surface and enter the midnight zone, they engage in a breathing ritual that completely alters their body chemistry. Humans breathe to keep oxygen in our lungs, but for a deep-diving whale, the lungs are a liability. The pressure of the deep ocean is strong enough to crush air-filled spaces. Before a dive, the whale exhales, emptying its lungs to reduce buoyancy and prevent the chest from collapsing violently. Instead of storing oxygen in gas form, the whale stores it in its blood and muscles. Their blood is rich in hemoglobin, and their muscles are packed with myoglobin, a protein that binds oxygen and turns the flesh a deep, almost black color. This allows the whale to carry its air supply dissolved in its tissues, safe from the crushing grip of the pressure, turning the animal into a solid, oxygenated battery that can run for an hour or more on a single charge. As the Leviathan descends, passing the threshold where sunlight fades to twilight, a physiological switch flips known as the mammalian dive reflex. This is an ancient survival mechanism shared by all mammals, including humans, but perfected by the whale. The heart rate slows dramatically, dropping to just a few beats per minute. Blood is shunted away from the extremities, the tail, the skin, and the digestive system, and concentrated only in the vital organs, the brain and the heart. The whale shuts down the non-essential parts of its body, entering a state of suspended animation where metabolism crawls. It is a meditation of the flesh, a conscious slowing of life to stretch the limited oxygen supply across the long, dark journey into the abyss. Once the whale passes a depth of around 100 meters, the pressure becomes great enough to collapse the rib cage entirely. Unlike terrestrial animals whose ribs are fixed and rigid to protect the lungs, the whale's ribs are hinged and flexible. They are designed to fold under pressure, allowing the chest cavity to compress without breaking. The lungs collapse completely, forcing the remaining air into the sturdy, reinforced windpipe where no nitrogen can be absorbed into the blood. This collapse is crucial because it prevents the bends, the deadly condition that affects human divers when nitrogen bubbles form in the blood. By collapsing the lungs, the whale seals off the gas exchange, ensuring that even at depths of 2 miles, its blood remains free of dangerous nitrogen, allowing it to return to the surface safely without needing to stop for decompression. Down here, in the crushing dark of the bathypelagic zone, the sperm whale hunts for its legendary adversary, the giant squid. The darkness is absolute, a blackness so thick it feels heavy. The whale does not use sight. Its eyes are small and useless in this void. Instead, it sees with sound. It sends out rhythmic clicks, listening for the faint echo returning from the soft body of a squid hiding in the gloom. The echolocation provides a 3-dimensional image of the surroundings, revealing the texture, distance, and speed of the prey. To the whale, The squid appears as a ghost in the sonar, a distinct shape glowing in the soundscape. The hunt is a game of blind man's bluff played by titans, where one sees with sound and the other hides in the silence. The battles between the sperm whale and the giant squid are rarely witnessed by human eyes, but the evidence is etched into the skin of the whales themselves. Adult sperm whales often bear the scars of these encounters, circular ring marks left by the serrated suckers of the squid's tentacles. These scars can cover the whale's head and mouth, a roadmap of violent struggles in the deep. The giant squid is not a helpless victim. It fights back with tentacles that can reach 30 feet in length, armed with sharp, chitinous rings that cut like saw blades. It wraps itself around the whale's head, trying to suffocate the mammal or gouge its eyes. But the whale is massive, armored in thick blubber, and possesses a jaw lined with conical teeth. The struggle is likely brief but intense, a clash of soft, grasping arms against hard, crushing bone in a world where no light ever shines. When the whale successfully captures a squid, it uses a feeding method known as suction feeding. The sperm whale's jaw is long and narrow, and it can open to a wide angle. By rapidly retracting its massive tongue, which acts like a piston, it creates a powerful vacuum inside its mouth. This suction is strong enough to pull the squid into the throat, overcoming the grip of the tentacles. The teeth of the sperm whale are only found on the lower jaw and fit into sockets on the upper jaw. They are not used for chewing, but for grasping and disabling. The whale swallows the squid whole or in large chunks, consuming a creature that may be nearly as long as a school bus. It is a meal of pure protein, essential for maintaining the thick layer of blubber that insulates the whale against the freezing cold of the deep ocean. The digestion of these squid leads to the creation of one of the ocean's most valuable and strange substances: ambergris. The beaks of the squid are hard, sharp, and indigestible, made of chitin, similar to a parrot's beak. Usually, the whale vomits these beaks out, but occasionally they pass into the intestines where they irritate the lining of the gut. To protect itself, the whale secretes a waxy, fatty substance to coat the sharp beaks, binding them together into a smooth lump. Over years, this lump grows as it moves through the digestive system. Eventually, it is expelled into the ocean, where it floats on the surface, cured by the sun and salt water. This is ambergris, a substance that has been used in fine perfumes for centuries for its unique, earthy scent and its ability to make fragrances last longer. It is a treasure produced by a stomachache, floating gold, born from the battle between a whale and a squid. The social structure of sperm whales is deeply complex and matriarchal, revolving entirely around the females. Adult males are solitary nomads, roaming the high latitudes and the cold waters of the poles alone, only returning to the warm waters to breed. But the females stay together in tight-knit family units called pods, usually consisting of grandmothers, mothers, and daughters. These pods remain together for life, creating a multi-generational society where knowledge is passed down. They share the duties of raising the young, protecting the calves, and even suckling offspring that are not their own. It is a sisterhood of the sea, a cooperative society where the bonds between females are stronger and longer lasting than any bond with a male, creating a stable, nurturing environment in an ocean that is often hostile. One of the most touching behaviors observed in these pods is alloparenting, or communal babysitting. A sperm whale calf cannot dive deep. Its body is too small to store enough oxygen, and it lacks the stamina to follow its mother into the abyss to hunt. This creates a dangerous problem. The mother must eat, but she cannot leave her calf alone at the surface where sharks and orcas patrol. The solution is the babysitting service. When a mother dives, another female from the pod, often a grandmother or an aunt, stays behind at the surface to watch over the calf. They take turns diving and guarding, ensuring that the vulnerable young are never left unprotected. This level of cooperation suggests a deep empathy and a sophisticated understanding of family responsibility, proving that the Leviathan is not just a biological machine, but a social being. Sleep for these giants is a surreal and alien sight that few have ever witnessed. Sperm whales sleep vertically. They arrange themselves in the water column like massive drifting pillars, their heads pointing toward the surface or the sea floor, suspended in perfect stillness. They enter a state of unihemispheric slow-wave sleep, where one half of their brain shuts down to rest, while the other half remains alert to control breathing and monitor for danger. Or, in some deeper phases, they may shut down almost completely for short bursts of 10 to 15 minutes. A diver stumbling upon a pod of sleeping whales would see a forest of monoliths, silent and unmoving, a suspended Stonehenge of flesh. They do not drift far. They simply hang there, buoyant and peaceful, dreaming in the blue twilight between the air and the deep. The migration routes of the great whales are the longest roads traveled by any mammal on Earth. The grey whale, for example, swims over 10,000 miles every year, traveling from the cold, nutrient-rich feeding grounds of the Arctic to the warm, safe breeding lagoons of Baja California. This journey takes months, a relentless march along the coastlines of continents. They navigate using a combination of visual landmarks, the sun, and the Earth's magnetic field. Scientists believe that whales possess magnetite in their brains, microscopic crystals that align with the planet's magnetic poles, giving them an internal compass that guides them across the featureless open ocean. They are following ancestral paths carved into their genetic memory, roads that have been traveled by their foremothers for millions of years, long before humans drew borders on a map. The acoustic environment of the ocean is not just a tool for hunting, it is a medium for culture. Sperm whales communicate using patterns of clicks called coders. These are distinct rhythmic sequences like a Morse code unique to each clan. A whale from the Pacific Ocean speaks a different dialect than a whale from the Caribbean. When two pods meet, they can identify each other by their coders. Researchers have discovered that these dialects are learned, not inherited. A calf learns the specific rhythm of its family's clicks from its mother and peers. This is the definition of culture, knowledge and behavior transmitted socially rather than genetically. The ocean is filled with these languages, a Tower of Babel built of clicks and whistles, where clans define themselves by the rhythm of their voice. The longevity of the Leviathan is a subject that forces us to rethink the passage of time. While sperm whales live similar lifespans to humans, the bowhead whale of the Arctic is the true elder of the sea. These whales live exclusively in the freezing polar waters, and their metabolism is exceedingly slow. Scientists have found ancient stone harpoon tips embedded in the blubber of bowhead whales caught in the modern era, weapons that were used by Victorian-era whalers over a century ago. This physical evidence, combined with chemical analysis of the eye tissue, suggests that bowhead whales can live for over 200 years. There are whales swimming in the Arctic today that were born before the invention of the light bulb, before the American Civil War, living relics that have silently watched the world change while they break the ice with their massive, scarred heads. The humpback whale, another of the great leviathans, is the composer of the ocean. The males of this species sing complex, haunting songs that can last for 20 minutes and be repeated for hours. These are not random noises. They are structured compositions with verses and choruses. What is most remarkable is that the song changes over time. At the beginning of a breeding season, all the males in a region sing the same song. But as the season progresses, they improvise, changing a note here, shortening a phrase there. By the end of the season, the song has evolved into something completely new. This new hit song then spreads across the ocean like a wave. Whales from neighboring regions pick it up and pass it on. It is a cultural transmission of music that spans entire ocean basins, a planetary choir that is constantly rewriting its own hymn. Finally, we must consider the sheer impact of a whalefall, the moment when a Leviathan dies and sinks to the seafloor. This is not an end, but a beginning. When a 30-ton carcass lands on the abyssal plain, it creates an oasis of life in the desert of the deep. The smell of the decaying flesh attracts scavengers from miles away, sleeper sharks, hagfish, and giant isopods. They feast for months, stripping the flesh from the bones. But even after the meat is gone, the bones sustain life for decades. Specialized worms, called ossidacs, or bone-eating snotflower worms, root themselves into the skeleton, dissolving the fats and oils trapped inside the marrow. A single whale skeleton can support a unique ecosystem of hundreds of species for up to 50 years. In death, the Leviathan becomes a city, a long-lasting gift of energy to the dark world that sustained it in life. In the freezing, crystal-clear waters of the Arctic, where the ice sheets form a shifting ceiling of white above the dark sea, swims the narwhal, a creature that possesses one of the most misunderstood and mythical appendages in the animal kingdom. Emerging from the upper lip of the male, and occasionally the female, is a long, spiral tusk that can grow up to 10 feet in length. For centuries, this tusk was sold in Europe as the horn of the unicorn, a magical object said to neutralize poison. But the biological reality is far more fascinating than the myth. The tusk is actually an elongated canine tooth, growing through the lip in a counterclockwise spiral. Unlike the teeth of most mammals, which are encased in hard enamel to protect the nerves inside, the narwhal's tusk is inverted. The sensitive nerve-filled pulp is on the outside, covered only by a porous layer of cementum. This design turns the tusk into a hypersensitive sensory organ, a biological antenna containing over 10 million nerve endings. By holding its tusk above the water in the freezing air, the narwhal can detect subtle changes in barometric pressure, helping it predict the formation of ice channels. Underwater, the tusk can taste the concentration of salt in the sea, allowing the whale to find fish or navigate the complex, shifting salinity of the melting ice pack. It is not a weapon of war, but a wand of perception, allowing the narwhal to feel the chemistry of its frozen world. Sharing these icy waters is the beluga whale, a ghost white leviathan known as the canary of the sea for its incredible vocal range. While most whales have fused neck vertebrae that keep their heads rigid for stability in the water, the beluga has evolved a neck that is unfused and flexible, allowing it to turn its head from side to side and look around with a distinctly human-like curiosity. This flexibility is essential for navigating the labyrinthine cracks and crevices of the sea ice where they hunt. The beluga's forehead, or melon, is a bulbous structure made of fatty tissue that acts as a lens for focusing sound. What makes the beluga unique is its ability to physically reshape this melon, using muscles to change the curvature of its forehead in real time. By bulging or flattening this acoustic lens, the beluga can direct its echolocation beams with laser-like precision, scanning the underside of the ice for breathing holes or locating schools of Arctic cod in the murky water. Their songs are a chaotic, beautiful mix of chirps, whistles, squeals, and trills that can be heard clearly through the hulls of ships, a constant chatter that maintains social cohesion in the blinding white fog of the polar seas. Moving south from the pole to the temperate oceans, we encounter the North Atlantic right whale, a slow-moving giant that feeds in a way that is fundamentally different from the gulping lunges of the blue or humpback whales. The right whale is a skim feeder. Instead of taking massive gulps, it swims with its mouth permanently open, cruising through clouds of microscopic copepods like a massive living trawler. Its mouth is a cavernous arch, housing plates of baleen that are up to 8 feet long, dark and slender, hanging from the upper jaw like curtains of rigid hair. As the whale moves forward, water flows into the front of the mouth and is forced out through the sides, trapped by the baleen mesh. This method of feeding requires the whale to be incredibly buoyant so it can stay at the surface with its head raised. To achieve this, the right whale has an exceptionally thick layer of blubber, sometimes nearly 2 feet deep. This insulation makes them so buoyant that they float even when dead, a tragic trait that made them the right whale to hunt in the days of sail, as they would not sink when harpooned, allowing whalers to tow them easily back to shore. The baleen plates themselves are a marvel of structural engineering, made not of bone, but of keratin, the same protein that forms human hair and fingernails. In the mouth of a bowhead or right whale, these plates are strong but flexible, designed to withstand the constant pressure of flowing water without snapping. The inner edge of each plate is frayed into fine, hairy bristles that interlock with the bristles of the neighboring plates, creating a dense, fibrous mat. This mat is fine enough to trap organisms smaller than a grain of rice, while allowing tons of water to pass through effortlessly. The baleen grows continuously throughout the whale's life, wearing down at the tips and being replenished from the gums, ensuring that the filter remains efficient even after decades of constant abrasion from salt and sand. It is a filtration system that outperforms any machine humans have built, capable of separating millions of calories of food from the ocean without a single moving mechanical part. Hidden deep within the ear canal of the whale is a record of its life history, written in wax. Whales produce earwax, or cerumen, just like humans, but because they have no external hands to remove it, and the outer ear canal is sealed against the water, the wax builds up in layers over decades. In baleen whales, this forms a long, cylindrical plug that can be read like the rings of a tree. Each layer corresponds to a specific period of time, usually roughly 6 months. During the summer feeding season, when the whale is feasting and growing fat, the wax deposited is light in color and rich in lipids. During the winter migration, when the whale is fasting and stressed, the wax is dark and dense. By slicing this plug lengthwise, scientists can reconstruct the entire biography of the animal. They can determine when it reached sexual maturity, how many times a female was pregnant, and even measure the levels of the stress hormone cortisol to see how the whale reacted to environmental changes or human activity like whaling and shipping noise during specific years of the 20th century. The fin whale, the second largest animal on Earth, is the speed demon of the Leviathans, earning it the nickname, the Greyhound of the Sea. While the blue whale is massive and majestic, the fin whale is sleek and streamlined, capable of sustaining speeds of up to 25 miles per hour, with bursts even faster. This speed was its primary defense against whalers for centuries, as early sailing ships simply could not catch it. The fin whale possesses a bizarre and unexplained asymmetry in its pigmentation. The lower right jaw is bright white, while the lower left jaw is dark gray or black. This coloration extends into the mouth. The baleen plates on the right side are white, while those on the left are dark. Marine biologists believe this asymmetry is a form of camouflage used during hunting. When the fin whale circles a school of fish It often rolls onto its right side, flashing the white jaw toward the prey. The sudden flash of white in the dark water may startle the fish, causing them to ball up tightly, making them easier to engulf in a single high-speed lunge. While the sperm whale is the most famous deep diver, the true champion of the abyss is the Cuvier's beaked whale. These unassuming, medium-sized whales are the deepest diving mammals known to science. In 2014, a Cuvier's beaked whale was recorded diving to a depth of 9,816 feet, nearly 2 miles down, and staying submerged for over 2 hours and 17 minutes on a single breath. To survive such crushing pressure, which would snap a human submarine like a twig, the Cuvier's beaked whale has evolved to be almost entirely collapsible. Its ribcage folds flat, its lungs compress into nothingness, and its air spaces are eliminated. But the true secret lies in its muscles. The meat of a beaked whale is so packed with myoglobin, the oxygen-storing protein, that it is almost purple-black. This allows the whale to function anaerobically, tolerating levels of lactic acid in its blood that would cause immediate organ failure in a human, allowing it to hunt squid in the Haddle zones where even the sunlight is a forgotten memory. The danger of the bends or decompression sickness is a constant threat to any diver returning from the deep, caused by nitrogen gas forming bubbles in the blood. For decades, scientists wondered how whales avoided this agonizing death. The answer lies in their behavior as much as their biology. Leviathans perform a safety stop during their ascent, just like human scuba divers, but they do it instinctively. As they rise from the deep, they slow down their ascent speed, allowing the nitrogen to diffuse harmlessly out of their tissues. Furthermore, because their lungs collapse at depth, the nitrogen from the air they inhaled is trapped in the reinforced trachea and not absorbed into the bloodstream during the deepest part of the dive. However, modern sonar testing by navies has been shown to disrupt this delicate rhythm. A panicked whale, frightened by loud sonar blasts, may surface too quickly, overriding its biological safeguards and suffering from lethal nitrogen bubbles. A tragic collision between ancient instinct and modern noise. In the nutrient-rich waters of Southeast Alaska, humpback whales engage in a cooperative hunting strategy that displays a level of intelligence and coordination rivaling wolves or lions. This behavior is called bubble net feeding. A group of whales will locate a school of herring and dive beneath it. One whale, the caller, emits a piercing, trumpet-like scream that panics the fish and drives them upward. Simultaneously, another whale, the bubble blower, swims in a shrinking spiral around the prey, releasing a steady stream of air from its blowhole. These bubbles rise to the surface, forming a shimmering, cylindrical wall that the fish are afraid to cross. As the net tightens and the fish are corralled into a dense ball near the surface, the entire pod of whales lunges upward through the center of the ring with their mouths wide open, swallowing thousands of fish in a single, synchronized gulp. This behavior is learned, not inherited. It is a cultural tradition passed down from mother to calf in specific populations, a complex tool made of air and water. The gray whale is the farmer of the ocean floor, the only species of large whale that feeds primarily on benthic or bottom-dwelling organisms. While other whales chase fish or krill in the water column, the gray whale swims down to the seabed and turns on its side. It cruises along the bottom, sucking up mouthfuls of mud, sand, and water. Using its coarse, short baleen, it filters out the tiny amphipods, shrimp-like creatures, that live in the sediment. This feeding method leaves visible scars on the ocean floor. Aerial surveys of feeding grounds often show vast fields of pits and trenches where the whales have tilled the seabed. By disturbing the sediment, the gray whale releases nutrients trapped in the mud back into the water column. acting as a massive biological plow that fertilizes the ocean and stimulates the growth of plankton, benefiting the entire ecosystem. The bond between a mother whale and her calf is forged in sound, but in a dangerous ocean, silence is sometimes safer. Southern right whale mothers and calves have been observed whispering to each other. Instead of using the loud, booming calls that travel for miles, the mother and calf use a quiet, low-volume acoustic signal that can only be heard from a few hundred meters away. This acoustic crypsis is a survival strategy designed to avoid attracting the attention of orcas and large sharks. The calf stays close to the mother's flank, swimming in her hydrodynamic slipstream to save energy, and they communicate in soft grunts and murmurs. It is an intimate, private conversation amidst the vast noise of the ocean, a secret language of love and protection used to navigate a world full of predators. The orca, or killer whale, is technically the largest species of dolphin, but its size and dominance earn it a place among the Leviathans. In the frozen waters of Antarctica, orcas have developed a hunting technique that demonstrates a profound understanding of physics. When a Weddell seal takes refuge on a floating ice floe, it is safe from the orca's teeth but not from its mind. The orcas will line up side by side and swim in perfect synchronization toward the ice. At the last second, they dive under the floe, creating a massive bow wave that washes over the ice, cracking it, or simply washing the seal into the water. This wave-washing technique requires precise timing and cooperation. The older whales teach the younger ones, sometimes pushing the seal back onto the ice to let the calves try again, turning the hunt into a classroom where the laws of fluid dynamics are taught to the next generation of apex predators. Deep in the tropical oceans, the false killer whale forms long-term bonds that can last for decades, creating a society based on friendship and sharing. These sleek black cetaceans are known for offering food to humans diving with them, presenting fish as gifts in a gesture of cross-species altruism. But their most remarkable behavior is their relationship with bottlenose dolphins. False killer whales and bottlenose dolphins have been observed traveling together, foraging together, and even mingling in mixed species pods for years at a time. This is not a casual encounter, but a long-term alliance. They recognize each other, vocalize to each other, and may even hunt cooperatively. It suggests that the social lives of Leviathans are open and cosmopolitan, capable of bridging the gap between species to form a community based on mutual benefit and companionship in the open blue. The short-finned pilot whale is the cheetah of the deep, a title earned not for its swimming speed, but for its high-energy hunting sprints in the darkness. During the day, pilot whales rest at the surface, logging and socializing. But at night, they dive deep, down to 800 meters or more, to hunt squid. Once they reach the depth of the prey, they engage in high-speed chases that would be impossible for most deep divers. They sprint at speeds of up to 9 meters per second in the crushing pressure, pursuing the agile squid in a game of cat and mouse. To sustain this energy output while holding their breath, their metabolism is tuned to operate at the very limit of anaerobic efficiency. After a few of these high-speed sprints, the whale must return to the surface to recover, panting and reoxygenating its blood before plunging back down for another round of high-stakes tag in the dark. The elusive Omura's whale is a ghost Leviathan that was only classified as a distinct species in 2003. For decades, it was misidentified as a small bride's whale, hiding in plain sight in the tropical waters of the Indian and Pacific Oceans. Omura's whales are sleek, solitary, and possess the same asymmetrical jaw coloration as the fin whale, but on a smaller scale. They do not migrate to the poles to feed, but stay in warm tropical waters year-round, feeding on localized swarms of krill. Because they do not aggregate in large numbers and do not produce the massive blows of the larger rorquals, they remained a scientific rumor for over a century. Their discovery is a humble reminder that even today, the ocean is vast enough to hide a 33-foot whale from the prying eyes of humanity. Drifting alone in the North Pacific is a whale known only as 52 Blue, or the 52 Hearts whale. First detected by Navy hydrophones in 1989, this individual sings at a frequency of 52 Hearts, which is much higher than the deep 15 to 25 Hearts songs of blue whales or fin whales. Because of this unique frequency, his calls are likely unheard or misunderstood by other whales. He has been tracked for decades, migrating up and down the coast, always traveling alone, his migration path differing slightly from the known routes of other species. He has never been visually identified, only heard. He is often called the loneliest whale in the world, singing a song that no one answers, a solitary wanderer broadcasting a unique signature into an ocean that is too vast to be empty, but perhaps too specific to be shared. The skin of a Leviathan is not just a covering, it is a living ecosystem hosting thousands of hitchhikers. The barnacle coronula diadema is a species that lives exclusively on the skin of humpback whales. Unlike rock barnacles that glue themselves to the surface, whale barnacles grow deep into the whale's skin, anchoring themselves in the blubber to withstand the drag of the water. A single humpback can carry up to 1,000 pounds of barnacles. While this might seem like a burden, these barnacles can act as a set of brass knuckles. When male humpbacks battle for dominance, they slam their bodies against each other and slash with their fins. The rough, sharp patches of barnacles turn their skin into a serrated weapon, inflicting damage on rivals. In this way, the parasite becomes a partner, providing armor in exchange for a free ride through the nutrient-rich oceans. Another resident of the whale's skin is the whale louse, or cyanid. These are not insects, but tiny skeletal crustaceans related to shrimp. They are flattened and possess hooked claws that allow them to cling to the whale's skin even during high-speed swimming. They congregate in the rough patches of callosities on right whales, or in the grooves of the throat pleats. Whale lice are helpful cleaners. They eat dead skin, algae, and perform microsurgery on wounds, keeping the whale's tissue healthy. Interestingly, different species of whales host different species of lice. The divergence of whale lice DNA matches the evolutionary divergence of the whales themselves, meaning these tiny passengers have been riding their specific hosts for millions of years, a genetic shadow mirroring the history of the giants they call home. Spy hopping is a behavior that bridges the gap between the underwater world and the air. A whale, often a humpback, orca, or grey whale, will slowly rise vertically out of the water until its eyes are above the surface. It holds this position, sometimes for minutes, treading water with its powerful flukes. This is not a breach or a lunge. It is a controlled observation. The whale is looking at us. In the air, vision is different than in water, and whales have eyes that can adapt to both mediums. Spy hopping allows them to check for landmarks, observe the location of ice flows, or simply satisfy a curiosity about the boats and humans floating on their ceiling. It is a moment of mutual recognition where the Leviathan enters our world to watch the watchers. Logging is the term used to describe a whale at rest on the surface. To the casual observer, the whale looks like a discarded log or a piece of driftwood, floating motionless, with its back exposed and its blowhole just above the waterline. This is a state of deep relaxation, often occurring after a long bout of feeding or migrating. The whale is conscious, but passive, letting the buoyancy of its blubber hold it up. In this state, the whale is most vulnerable to ship strikes because it is low in the water and hard to see. However, for the whale, it is a moment of peace, basking in the warmth of the sun, feeling the gentle rock of the swells and taking slow, deliberate breaths of fresh air before returning to the darkness below. The mechanics of the lunge feed, practiced by the great rorqual whales, like the blue, fin, and humpback, involve an anatomical transformation that is nearly impossible to believe without seeing it. Beneath the lower jaw, extending all the way to the navel, lies a specialized series of pleats known as ventral groove blubber. When the whale is swimming normally, these grooves are folded tight against the body, keeping the animal streamlined. But when the whale opens its mouth to feed, these pleats expand like the bellows of an enormous accordion. This expansion allows the mouth cavity to balloon outward, engulfing a volume of water that can be larger than the whale's entire body size. The skin stretches to a terrifying degree, turning the sleek torpedo-shaped animal into a bloated, tadpole-like shape for a few seconds. This engulfment is not passive. It is a violent, high-energy event where the whale uses its own momentum to force water into the expanding sac. The sheer force of the water entering the mouth would rip the nerves of any other animal apart, but the rorqual whale has evolved bungee cord nerves in its jaw and tongue. These nerves are wrapped in a thick, elastic sheath of collagen and elastin fibers, allowing them to stretch to double their resting length without snapping or losing their ability to transmit signals, snapping back into place instantly as the water is pushed out through the baleen. While the rorquals are masters of expansion, the pygmy sperm whale, a shy and elusive creature of the deep, has evolved a defense mechanism that mimics its cephalopod prey. When threatened by a predator, such as a shark or a killer whale, the pygmy sperm whale does not fight. It deploys a smokescreen. Located in the lower intestine is a sac filled with a dark, reddish-brown fluid, a syrup made of liquefied feces and wax esters. By contracting its abdominal muscles, the whale can blast this fluid into the water, creating a dense, expanding cloud of ink. At the same time, the whale spins in the water to disperse the cloud, creating a murky veil that confuses the predator's vision and sense of smell. This tactic, known as the anal torpedo, allows the small whale to slip away into the depths, while the attacker is left investigating a cloud of biological debris. It is a remarkable instance of convergent evolution, where a mammal has reinvented the inkjet defense of the squid, turning its own waste into a tool of survival. In the warm waters of the tropics, the sperm whale exhibits a defensive formation that speaks to a deep strategic intelligence known as the Marguerite Formation. When a pod of sperm whales is attacked by orcas, they do not scatter, they cluster together. The females arrange themselves in a tight circle, radiating outward like the petals of a daisy flower. In the center of this circle, protected by the massive slate-gray bodies of the adults, lies the vulnerable calf. The adults can position themselves with their heads facing inward and their powerful tails facing out, creating a wall of thrashing flukes that can deliver lethal blows to any attacker. Alternatively, they may face outward, using their jaws and sonar to track the enemy. This living fortress is nearly impenetrable, a coordinate blockade where the individuals act as a single, defensive organism, breathing and moving in unison to shield the next generation from the wolves of the sea. The skin of the beluga whale is unique among cetaceans, designed not just for insulation, but for a seasonal ritual of renewal. Most whales shed their skin continuously, flaking off microscopic cells as they swim. The beluga, however, undergoes a catastrophic molt every summer. As the ice breaks up and they migrate into the warmer, shallow estuaries of the Arctic rivers, their skin turns a yellow-brown hue. To shed this old, dead layer, the whales turn the riverbeds into a spa. They rub their bodies vigorously against the coarse gravel and sharp rocks of the bottom, rolling and thrashing to peel away the thick sheets of old epidermis. This exfoliation reveals the brilliant, snowy white skin underneath, restoring their sleek hydrodynamic profile and removing parasites. The river mouths become filled with hundreds of these white ghosts, writhing in the shallows in a communal act of shedding the past year's wear and tear. The iconic blow of a whale, often depicted in cartoons as a simple fountain of water, is actually a complex mixture of hot air, atomized oil, and mucus. When a whale exhales, the air in its lungs is under high pressure and is significantly warmer than the surrounding sea air. As this hot gas blasts out of the blowhole at speeds of hundreds of miles per hour, it expands and cools instantly, causing the water vapor to condense into a visible cloud of fog. But the blow also contains droplets of oil from the respiratory tract and a fine mist of mucus, which gives the spout a distinct oily texture and a pungent fishy smell, often described by sailors as bad breath. The shape of this cloud is a signature. The right whale has two blowholes that are angled apart, creating a distinct V-shaped blow that can be identified from miles away, while the sperm whale's single blowhole is located on the left side of its head, shooting the spray forward and to the left at a sharp angle. On the skin of the North Atlantic right whale, there exist rough, calcified patches of skin called callosities. These patches appear white against the whale's black skin, but the whiteness is not the skin itself. It is the result of thousands of whale lice clinging to the roughened tissue. The placement of these callosities is unique to each individual whale, forming patterns on the head, chin, and lips that are as distinct as a human fingerprint. Marine biologists use these patterns to identify and track individual whales over decades. The lice, tiny crustaceans called cyamids, are white or pinkish, and they crowd onto the callosities in such density that they color the whale. If the whale is sick or injured, the lice population can explode, spreading across the body, but in a healthy whale, they remain confined to these specific islands of rough skin, living their entire lives on the face of a single giant. The auditory system of the whale is housed within a bone called the tympanic bulla, a structure that is denser and harder than any other bone in the animal kingdom. This incredible density is necessary to isolate the inner ear from the vibrations of the whale's own skull and the surrounding flesh. In the water, sound travels through body tissue just as easily as it travels through the ocean, which would normally make directional hearing impossible. The sound would arrive at both ears simultaneously. The massive, rock-like bulla hangs somewhat loosely from the skull, insulated by sinuses filled with foam and oil. This isolation allows the whale to detect the minute time difference between a sound wave hitting the left ear versus the right ear, granting them precise directional hearing in the 3D void of the ocean. Because these bones are so hard, they are often the only part of a whale that fossilizes intact, leaving behind millions of years of auditory history in the sediment. The strap-toothed whale, a species of beaked whale, possesses a dental arrangement that seems like an evolutionary mistake, but is actually a specialized trap. In adult males, two tusks grow from the lower jaw and curve upward and backward, eventually wrapping over the upper jaw. As the whale ages, these teeth can grow so long that they meet in the middle, physically locking the whale's mouth shut. The animal cannot open its jaw more than a few centimeters. Far from starving, the strap-toothed whale thrives by becoming a pure suction feeder. It relies entirely on the powerful vacuum created by its throat muscles to slurp up squid and small fish, using the locked teeth perhaps as guides to funnel prey into the narrow opening. It is a creature that lives its entire adult life behind the bars of its own teeth, surviving on the power of suction alone. Deep in the Southern Ocean, the The feeding habits of the great whales drive a planetary-scale engineering project known as the whale pump. Whales feed at depth, consuming iron-rich krill and fish, but they defecate at the surface. Their waste is not solid but a loose, flocculent plume that is rich in iron and nitrogen. This fecal plume acts as a liquid fertilizer for the surface ocean, stimulating massive blooms of phytoplankton. These microscopic plants absorb carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and produce oxygen. By diving and surfacing, the whales are mechanically mixing the ocean, bringing nutrients from the dark abyss up to the sunlit zone where they fuel the base of the food web. A single blue whale acts as a gardener for the open ocean, planting forests of plankton with its waste, which in turn feeds the very krill the whale depends on. The humpback whale possesses a secret weapon in its flippers, known as tubercles. The leading edge of a humpback's pectoral fin is not smooth like an airplane wing. It is bumpy, covered in a row of large, knobby protuberances. For years, engineers thought these bumps would create drag, but fluid dynamics revealed the opposite. The tubercles channel the water flow, creating rotating vortices that keep the water attached to the surface of the fin even at steep angles. This prevents the whale from stalling when it makes tight turns. This biological design allows the 50-ton humpback to be incredibly acrobatic, turning inside its own length to catch fish. This discovery has revolutionized human engineering, leading to the design of more efficient wind turbine blades and fans that mimic the bumpy edge of the whale's fin to move air more quietly and efficiently. The ancient ancestor of the modern whale, known as Basilosaurus, offers a glimpse into the terrifying transition from land to sea. Living about 40 million years ago, this creature was a serpentine giant, stretching up to 60 feet long. Unlike modern whales, Basilosaurus possessed tiny, vestigial hind legs, complete with knees, ankles, and toes, that were useless for walking, but perhaps used for clasping during mating. It had a mouth full of terrifying, shear-like teeth designed to chew and tear, unlike the swallowing, dentition of modern orcas or the baleen of rorquals. It swam with an eel-like motion, undulating its long body at the surface of the warm, shallow Tethys Sea. It was the king lizard that was actually a whale, a bridge between the wolf-like ancestors that walked on shore and the fluke-driven Leviathans of today. The cultural divide between resident and transient, or bigs, orcas in the Pacific Northwest, is so profound that they are effectively different nations living in the same territory. Residents live in large, stable pods and feed exclusively on fish, particularly Chinook salmon. They are chatty, using constant echolocation and complex calls to coordinate their fishing. Transients, on the other hand, travel in small, stealthy groups and feed exclusively on marine mammals, seals, sea lions, and other whales. Transients are silent hunters. They almost never vocalize because their prey has sensitive hearing. If a transient orca were to catch a salmon, it would spit it out. They are culturally and genetically bound to their specific diet. These two groups can swim past each other in the same channel and completely ignore one another, separated by a language barrier and a dietary code that has kept their bloodlines distinct for thousands of years. The Greenland shark, a slow-moving scavenger of the Arctic deep, shares its habitat with the bowhead whale and serves as a grim reminder of the patience of predators. These sharks have been found with chunks of whale blubber in their stomachs, yet they move too slowly to catch a healthy whale. The answer lies in their stealth and the whale's sleep. It is believed that the Greenland shark, which can live for 400 years, acts as a parasitic micro-predator, sneaking up on sleeping whales to take a single, circular bite before drifting away. However, the relationship is mostly one of scavenging. The Greenland shark is the vulture of the ice, waiting for the centuries-old bowhead to finally succumb to age, cleaning the ocean floor of the massive carcass in a slow, cold feast that can last for months. When a whale dives, its eyes must contend with the stinging salt and the friction of the water. To protect its vision, the whale possesses glands that secrete a thick, jelly-like mucus that coats the eye. This greasy tear is resistant to being washed away by the water, forming a protective goggles-like layer over the cornea. This mucus also helps to refract light, correcting the vision underwater so the whale doesn't see a blurry world. But the protection goes deeper. The sclera, or the white of the eye, is incredibly thick and tough, almost like cartilage, preventing the eyeball from deforming under the immense pressure of the deep. It is an eye built to withstand the weight of the ocean while maintaining the clarity to spot a rival or a mate in the twilight blue. The heat run is a chaotic and violent mating ritual performed by humpback whales, shattering the image of the gentle giant. Single female in heat will swim fast at the surface, attracting a suitor. But soon, other males join the chase, forming a group that can number up to 20 or 30 bulls. The males battle for the position directly behind the female, known as the primary escort. They slam their massive bodies together, ramming each other with the force of freight trains. They inflate their throat pleats to look larger, blow streams of bubbles to blind their rivals, and slash at each other with their barnacle-encrusted pectoral fins. The ocean boils with white water and the sounds of heavy impacts. This race can last for hours or days, a marathon of endurance and brute force, where only the strongest male earns the right to swim at the female's side. On the body of the cookie-cutter shark, a small, cigar-sized fish, lies the explanation for the mysterious crater-like scars found on almost all tropical whales and dolphins. The cookie-cutter shark is an ambush predator that glows in the dark. Its belly is covered in bioluminescent photophores that eliminate its shadow, except for a small dark patch around its throat that mimics the silhouette of a small fish. When a whale spots this small fish and approaches, the shark strikes. It latches onto the whale's skin with suction cup lips and spins its body, using its razor-sharp lower teeth to carve out a perfect circular plug of flesh. It then releases and swims away with its meal. The whale is left with a crater wound that heals into a white scar. A single older whale can be covered in dozens of these marks, a history of encounters with the ocean's smallest and most deceptive biting machine. The phenomenon of fluking allows scientists to identify individual whales by the underside of their tails. Just as no two human fingerprints are alike, no two humpback whale flukes are identical. They vary in the amount of white and black pigmentation, and more importantly, in the jagged trailing edge of the tail. This edge is shaped by a lifetime of wear, scars from orca attacks, scratches from barnacles, and nicks from battles. Marine biologists photograph these tails when the whale dives, cataloging them in global databases. By matching the photos, they can track a single whale across thousands of miles and dozens of years, telling the story of its life through the scars it carries on the propulsive engine of its body. In the silence of the deep Pacific, there exists a whale that was a ghost for nearly a century, Indopacetus pacificus, or Longman's beaked whale. For years, this massive animal was known only from two weather-beaten skulls found on beaches in Australia and Somalia. No one had ever seen one alive. Artists drew imaginary reconstructions based on the bones. It wasn't until the early 2000s that scientists finally confirmed sightings of this large tropical whale. It travels in large pods, has a bulbous forehead, and breathes with a bushy blow. The fact that a 25-foot mammal could hide from humanity for almost the entire 20th century is a testament to the vastness of the pelagic ocean and the elusive nature of the beaked whale family, who live their lives in the hidden deep. The peduncle throw is an aggressive maneuver used by humpback whales, particularly females defending their calves or establishing dominance. The peduncle is the massive muscular tailstock that connects the body to the flukes. In this move, the whale pivots its body and whips its tail sideways out of the water, slamming the rear half of its body down onto the surface or onto a rival with incredible force. It is different from a lobtail, which is a vertical slap. The peduncle throw is a lateral whip powered by the strongest muscles in the animal's body. It generates a shock wave in the water and a loud crack that signals intense agitation. It is the Leviathan's version of a karate chop, a display of kinetic energy that demands space and respect. There is a biological mystery known as Peto's paradox, which relates specifically to the health of leviathans. Logically, a blue whale should have a high risk of cancer. Cancer is caused by cells mutating. The more cells an animal has, and the longer it lives, the higher the statistical chance of a fatal mutation. A whale has quadrillions more cells than a human or a mouse. Yet, whales rarely get cancer. The secret lies in their genome. Whales have evolved extra copies of tumor-suppressing genes. These genes patrol the DNA, identifying and repairing mutations with an efficiency that human biology cannot match. If a cell becomes cancerous, the whale's body identifies it and shuts it down instantly. In their quest to become giants, the leviathans had to evolve a supercharged immune system to keep their massive cities of cells orderly, solving a medical problem that still baffles human science. Finally, we consider the fluke print, a mesmerizing phenomenon that occurs after a whale dives, when the whale kicks its tail downward to propel itself into the deep. The force of the stroke creates a vortex of upwelling water that rises to the surface. This creates a slick, glassy circle of calm water that lingers on the surface long after the whale has disappeared. These footprints can remain visible for several minutes, flattening the chop and waves. Experienced whale watchers and indigenous hunters use these prints to track the whale's underwater path. The footprint appears on the surface, and by judging the size and direction of the slick, one can predict where the giant will rise next. It is a ghost of the movement, a temporary scar of calm left on the restless face of the ocean. We move now to the very edge of the Leviathan's sensory world, to the few remaining hairs that cling to the faces of these giants. While we think of whales as entirely hairless, creatures of smooth rubber and blubber, the blue whale and several other species retain a scattering of vestigial bristles on their chins and upper jaws. These hairs are not for warmth. They are the size of a golf tee and are rooted deep in follicles, surrounded by a dense network of nerves and blood vessels. Known as vibrissae, they are the evolutionary leftovers of the whiskers that their ancestors once used to sense the environment on land. In the deep ocean, these tiny hairs likely serve a tactile function, acting as sensitive motion detectors that can feel the subtle changes in water pressure and velocity as the whale swims. When a blue whale lunges into a swarm of krill, these sensory hairs may help it judge the density of the prey against its lip, a microscopic touch of the world that triggers the massive, mechanical engulfment of the feast. Hidden beneath the thick, paddle-like flesh of a whale's pectoral fin lies a secret that connects them inextricably to us, a five-fingered hand. If you were to X-ray the flipper of a humpback or a sperm whale, you would see a skeletal structure that is hauntingly human. There is a humerus, a radius, and an ulna, followed by wrist bones and 5 distinct digits composed of phalanges. In some species, the fingers are elongated and spread out to form a broad hydrofoil, while in others, they are fused and shortened for stability. This pentadactyl limb is an ancient inheritance, a relic from the time when the ancestors of the whale walked on 4 legs along the shores of the Tethys Sea. The flesh has grown over the hand, turning it into a flipper to master the fluid dynamics of the ocean, but the bones remain, a silent skeletal echo of a time when the Leviathan grasped the earth rather than pushed the water. This evolutionary echo continues further back in the skeleton, where 2 tiny isolated bones float suspended in the muscle near the tail. These are the pelvic vestiges, the hips of the whale. They are not attached to the spine, they simply hang in the flesh, completely disconnected from the rest of the skeleton. For centuries, scientists believed these bones were useless, mere evolutionary trash left over from the transition to the sea. However, modern research suggests they play a crucial role in the reproductive mechanics of the animal, acting as anchor points for the muscles that control the reproductive organs. Evolution is a thrifty editor. It rarely discards a part completely if it can be repurposed. So the legs were lost, but the hips remained, transformed from weight-bearing structures into internal anchors that support the continuation of the species in the weightless environment of the deep. The nursing process of a Leviathan is a feat of underwater engineering, overcoming the twin challenges of holding one's breath and preventing the milk from dissolving into the sea. Whale milk is not a liquid like the milk of a cow or a human. It has the consistency of toothpaste or soft cheese. It is incredibly rich, containing up to 50% fat compared to the 4% found in cow's milk. This thickness is essential. When the calf nudges the mother's mammary slits, the milk is ejected under pressure, shooting into the calf's mouth. Because of its density, it does not disperse into the water, but holds its form, allowing the calf to swallow the high-energy fuel without losing a drop. This fatty diet allows the calf to grow at an astronomical rate. A blue whale calf can gain 200 pounds every single day, building the thick layer of blubber it needs to survive the migration to the freezing feeding grounds of the poles. In the reproductive wars of the North Atlantic right whale, size matters in a way that is unique in the animal kingdom. The male right whale possesses the largest testes of any animal on Earth, with a single pair weighing up to 1 ton, the weight of a small car. This immense size is driven by a mating strategy known as sperm competition. Right. Whales are not fighters. The males do not batter each other for access to females like humpbacks or sperm whales. Instead, the female may mate with several males in succession. The competition happens inside the female, where the sheer volume of genetic material determines the winner. By producing gallons of sperm, the male attempts to flush out the contributions of his rivals, turning the act of reproduction into a gentle, watery numbers game played out on a massive biological scale. The sei whale, a sleek and elusive rorqual, employs a feeding strategy that sits somewhere between the gulping of the blue whale and the skimming of the right whale. This behavior is known as skimming or skipping. The sei whale will swim near the surface with its mouth partially open, skimming through patches of copepods and krill. But unlike the slow, plow-like movement of the right whale, the sei whale moves with speed and agility. It often swims on its side, its dorsal fin slicing the surface, catching prey in the boundary layer between the air and the water. This method requires a precise control of buoyancy and speed, keeping the mouth just submerged enough to catch the food, but high enough to avoid the drag of a deep dive. It is a finesse maneuver, a high-speed graze that allows the sei whale to exploit food sources that are too scattered for the massive gulpers to target efficiently. For decades, submarines and oceanographers in the Pacific Ocean were baffled by a mysterious mechanical sound known as the boing. It sounded metallic, rhythmic, and synthetic, like a ping from a submarine sonar or a sci-fi sound effect. It was recorded everywhere, but never identified. It wasn't until 2002 that scientists finally matched the sound to the minke whale. This small, solitary baleen whale produces the noise as a vocalization, likely for mating or territory. The bowing is incredibly loud and travels for vast distances, allowing the solitary minkies to find each other in the immense emptiness of the North Pacific. The fact that a biological creature could produce a sound so metallic and mechanical is a testament to the strange acoustic properties of the whale's vocal anatomy, turning flesh and air into a noise that mimics the machines of man. The skin of the Risso's dolphin, a large, blunt-headed relative of the pilot whale, tells the story of every battle it has ever fought. Born a uniform grey, the Risso's dolphin accumulates white scars throughout its life. These scars come from the teeth of other Risso's dolphins during social disputes and from the beaks of the squid they hunt. Because the scar tissue does not repigment, the older the dolphin gets, the whiter it becomes. An old veteran appears almost pure white, covered in a crisscrossing map of rake marks and circular sucker wounds. This scarification is not just damage, it acts as a badge of age and experience. In the dim light of the deep ocean, a bright white dolphin stands out, signaling to others that it is a survivor, a dominant individual who has weathered decades of conflict and emerged bleached by the violence of its life. The orca, in its mastery of the ocean, has learned to exploit a biological glitch in sharks, known as tonic immobility. Sharks and rays rely on movement to orient themselves, and their internal equilibrium is fragile. If a shark is flipped upside down, it enters a trance-like state of paralysis, unable to move or fight back. Orcas have learned this. When hunting great white sharks or stingrays, an orca will ram the predator from the side or use its powerful tail to create a vortex that flips the shark onto its back. Once inverted, the shark goes limp. The orca can then hold the shark in this trance, suffocating it without a struggle. This surgical precision turns a dangerous fight into a calm execution, demonstrating a knowledge of physiology that is passed down through generations of orca pods, a secret weapon discovered by intelligence and perfected by practice. Deep in the flooded rainforests of the Amazon, the pink river dolphin, or boto, navigates a world that is more forest than river. During the rainy season, the water levels rise 30 feet, flooding the jungle floor. The boto leaves the main river channels and swims among the submerged trunks of trees. To navigate this obstacle course, the boto has evolved a neck that is unfused, unlike marine dolphins. It can turn its head 90 degrees to the side, looking around roots and branches. Its body is flexible and blubbery, allowing it to bend and weave through the vegetation. The famous pink coloration is a result of blood flow near the surface of the skin. When the dolphin is excited or active, it blushes a brighter pink, a vivid contrast to the tea-colored, tannin-rich waters of the Amazon. It is a creature of the canopy-turned reef, a ghost moving through a drowned world of leaves and vines. In the murky, silt-choked waters of the Ganges and Indus rivers lives a dolphin that has surrendered its sight entirely to the mud. The South Asian river dolphin is functionally blind. Its eyes have reduced to tiny pinholes that can detect light and dark, but cannot form images. In the brown, churning water of the river, vision is useless. Instead, this dolphin swims on its side, sweeping its long, narrow beak through the sediment like a metal detector. It emits a constant stream of echolocation clicks, never stopping, day or night. Because it must surface to breathe every few seconds in the turbulent current, and because it must constantly scan for food, it never truly sleeps. It takes micro-sleeps lasting only a few seconds between breaths, living a life of perpetual motion and sound in a world of eternal, liquid darkness. The vaquita, the world's smallest cetacean, haunts the northern Gulf of California, like a fading shadow. Growing only 5 feet long, these porpoises are shy and elusive, characterized by dark rings around their eyes and lips that give them a distinct, panda-like appearance. They prefer the murky, shallow waters near the shore, navigating with high-frequency clicks that are inaudible to most predators. The vaquita is the most endangered marine mammal on Earth, pushed to the brink by gill nets set for other fish. Their entire existence is now confined to a tiny patch of sea, a fragile population of perhaps 10 or fewer individuals. They are the ghosts of the Cortez, silent and vanishing, a reminder of how quickly a lineage that has survived for millions of years can be snuffed out by the indifference of the surface world. The spinner dolphin performs an aerial display that defies the logic of energy conservation. Leaping from the water, it spins on its longitudinal axis, completing up to 7 full rotations before hitting the water. While this behavior is often seen as play or communication, physics suggests a more practical purpose: hygiene. The ocean is filled with remoras, suckerfish, that attach themselves to cetaceans to hitch a ride. These passengers increase drag and can irritate the skin. The spinning leap generates immense centrifugal force. By spinning rapidly, the dolphin creates a force that flings the remoras off its body. The splash upon re-entry adds a concussive blow that dislodges any hangers-on. It is a washing machine cycle performed in the air, a joyous-looking dance that is actually a high-speed grooming session. The grief of a pilot whale is a profound and visible emotion that challenges our understanding of animal consciousness. Pilot whales are deeply social, living in matrilineal pods where bonds are lifelong. When a calf dies, the mother often refuses to abandon it. She will carry the small, lifeless body on her nose or back, pushing it through the water for days or even weeks. She stops feeding, spending all her energy to keep the calf at the surface. Other members of the pod may surround her, offering protection and seemingly sharing in the vigil. This behavior, known as epimiletics, suggests a concept of death and loss that goes beyond instinct. It is a mourning procession in the open sea, a refusal to let go of a loved one that speaks to a deep, heartbreaking capacity for love. Deep within the brain of the Leviathan, in the anterior cingulate cortex, exist specialized cells known as spindle neurons, or von Economo neurons. For a long time, scientists thought these cells were unique to humans and great apes, linked to social intelligence, empathy, and intuition. But recent studies have found them in the brains of humpback whales, fin whales, and orcas, and in greater density than in humans. These neurons allow for rapid processing of complex social emotions. Their presence suggests that whales may experience feelings of connection, grief, and self-awareness that are just as intense, if not more so, than our own. It implies that the social web of a whale pod is woven with threads of emotional complexity that we are only just beginning to unravel, a neurological hardware for love built on a massive scale. The ivory teeth of the sperm whale have held a fascination for humans for centuries, leading to the art form known as scrimshaw. But biologically, these teeth are a puzzle. A sperm whale has teeth only on its lower jaw, which fit into sockets in the upper jaw. However, healthy sperm whales have been caught with broken or missing teeth, or even with jaws that are severely deformed, yet they are full of food. This proves that the teeth are not necessary for feeding. The whale uses suction to capture squid. So why the teeth? They are likely weapons of aggression between males. Old bulls are often covered in parallel scars that match the spacing of these teeth, suggesting that they lock jaws or rake each other during battles for dominance. The ivory, is not a tool for eating, but a sword for fighting, hidden in the mouth of a giant. In the lagoons of Baja California, the gray whale exhibits a behavioral shift that borders on the miraculous. These whales were once known as devilfish by whalers because of the ferocity with which they defended their calves, smashing boats and killing hunters. Today, in the same lagoons, the descendants of those whales approach small boats voluntarily. They bring their calves to the side of the skiffs, allowing humans to touch and scratch their noses. This friendliness is a complete reversal of instinct. It suggests a level of forgiveness or curiosity that overrides the generational trauma of being hunted. The whales initiate the contact, lifting their massive heads out of the water to look the tourists in the eye, turning a former killing ground into a place of interspecies peace. The Dall's porpoise is the hyperactive sprinter of the North Pacific, a creature that looks like a miniature orca but moves like a skipping stone. When it swims at high speed, it creates a unique splash known as a rooster tail. The porpoise creates a hollow cone of air in the water as it breaks the surface, throwing a spray of water that arcs high into the air. This is caused by the extreme speed of the animal, up to 35 miles per hour, and the shape of its head. They are so fast that they often blur in photographs. They act as the bow riders of the fastest ships, darting back and forth across the pressure wave, living life at a frantic, high-octane pace that contrasts sharply with the slow, deliberate movements of the great whales. The act of breaching, launching a 40-ton body completely out of the water, requires an explosion of energy that is difficult to comprehend. For a humpback whale, a single breach burns as many calories as a human running a marathon. Yet they will breach repeatedly, sometimes dozens of times in a row. Theories abound for why they do this: to dislodge parasites, to communicate with distant pods through the loud slap of the landing, or to stun prey. But there is another possibility that scientists are beginning to accept. They do it because it is fun. Young whales breach more often than adults, suggesting it is a form of play, a joyful expression of physical power. It is the Leviathan, celebrating its own strength, turning the ocean into a playground where gravity is momentarily defied by sheer muscle. Finally, we witness a rare and heartwarming mystery in the St. Lawrence River: the cross-species adoption between a pod of beluga whales and a lost narwhal. A young male narwhal, far south of his Arctic home, was observed traveling with a group of belugas. He was not just following them, he was integrated into the pod. He adopted their behaviors, playing with them and swimming in their formation. The belugas, in turn, treated him as one of their own, despite his grey mottled skin and long tusk contrasting with their pure white smoothness. This acceptance suggests that the social definition of family among leviathans is flexible. In the loneliness of the ocean, the need for companionship transcends the barriers of species, creating a blended family of unicorns and canaries swimming together in the cold, dark water. Drifting south to the wind-swept waters of the Argentine coast, we observe a behavior in the southern right whale that looks more like a human hobby than a biological necessity. In the calm, protected bays, where they come to nurse their calves, adults have been seen performing a maneuver known as sailing. The whale inverts its body, diving headfirst until only its massive tail flukes remain above the surface. It then curves its tail into the wind, catching the breeze like a canvas sail. The force of the wind pushes the 50-ton animal through the water, allowing it to drift effortlessly across the lagoon without a single stroke of its fins. This behavior appears to be a form of play, or perhaps a way to cool down, exposing the blood-rich flukes to the air. It is a moment of pure whimsy, a leviathan turning itself into a sailboat, harnessing the invisible power of the air to glide through its liquid home in a state of suspended delight. Returning to the icy realm of the narwhal, we must appreciate the structural miracle of its tusk, which defies the brittleness we usually associate with ivory or bone. While it looks rigid and spear-like, the narwhal's tusk possesses an incredible degree of flexibility. The spiral growth pattern of the tooth allows it to distribute stress evenly along its length. In the wild, when male narwhals cross tusks in a display of dominance, or when the tusk is pressed against heavy pack ice, it can bend nearly a foot in any direction without snapping. This elasticity is due to the unique microscopic arrangement of the protein fibers within the dentin, which are woven in a way that allows for movement. It is a weapon that acts like a whip, a blend of hardness and yield that ensures the whale does not lose its primary sensory organ in the rough and tumble environment of the shifting polar ice. For decades, submarine crews and acoustic scientists in the Southern Ocean were haunted by a recurring sound they called the bioduck. It was a repetitive, low-frequency quacking noise, similar to a duck being strangled or a mechanical clanking that appeared every winter and vanished in the summer. It did not match the known call of any fish, seal, or whale. Theories ranged from secret military hardware to unknown sea monsters. It wasn't until 2014, when acoustic tags were placed on Antarctic minke whales, that the mystery was solved. The bioduck was the minke whale talking to itself before it surfaced to breathe. This elusive small baleen whale had been filling the southern seas with a sound that baffled the world's most advanced navies for 50 years, hiding in plain sight behind a voice that sounded nothing like a Leviathan. Deep within the boxy head of the sperm whale, beneath the liquid spermaceti organ, lies a second compartment known as the junk. This name, given by early whalers who found the fibrous meat useless for oil, belies its true anatomical complexity. The junk consists of a series of oil-filled lenses separated by tough connective tissue, resembling a stack of mattresses. While it aids in echolocation, modern biomechanical analysis suggests it also functions as a formidable shock absorber. The structure is dense enough to withstand immense impact forces without damaging the whale's skull. This lends credence to the legends of sperm whales ramming and sinking ships, such as the famous whaling ship Essex. The whale possesses a head that is essentially a hydraulic battering ram, capable of delivering a blow that can shatter oak planks and buckle steel plates, protected by a biological bumper built to survive the violence of a collision. The sense of smell was thought to be entirely absent in whales, as there is little to smell underwater and their blowholes are tightly sealed. However, the bowhead whale has proven this assumption wrong. Anatomical studies of the bowhead's brain reveal a large and functional olfactory bulb connected to the nasal passage. Unlike other whales, the bowhead has a cribriform plate, the porous bone that allows nerve fibers to pass from the nose to the brain. This suggests that the bowhead can smell the air. In the Arctic, where the location of plankton blooms can create distinct smells in the atmosphere, the scent of dimethyl oxide released by grazing krill, the bowhead may use its nose to sniff out feeding grounds from miles away. It drifts through the leads in the ice, inhaling the wind, following the scent of the ocean's productivity like a hound on a trail. The social wisdom of the orca is carried not by the strongest male, but by the oldest female. Orcas are one of the few species on Earth, alongside humans and pilot whales, that experience menopause. Female orcas stop reproducing in their 30s or 40s, but can live into their 90s. This extended post-reproductive life is not an accident of aging, but an evolutionary strategy. During years of salmon scarcity, it is the grandmothers who lead the pod. They carry the ecological knowledge of where to find food when the usual spots are empty, remembering hunting grounds from decades ago. Pods led by older post-reproductive females have a significantly higher survival rate during famines. The grandmother is the library of the family, her mind holding the maps and the memories that keep her descendants alive long after she has ceased to bear children of her own. In the southern hemisphere, there exists a ghost lineage known as the pygmy right whale. It is the smallest of the baleen whales, rarely exceeding 20 feet, and it is so distinct that it is the sole survivor of an ancient family of whales thought to have gone extinct millions of years ago. It is a living fossil. The pygmy right whale possesses a skeletal feature found in no other whale. Its ribs are flattened and expanded, overlapping like the plates of a suit of armor or the slats of a barrel. This rigid chest cavity is a mystery. It may offer protection or aid in buoyancy, but it makes the whales strangely stiff. They are rarely seen, living their lives in the turbulent, remote waters of the Southern Ocean, a remnant of a forgotten time, swimming unnoticed beneath the waves of the modern world. The deep ocean holds a phenomenon known as the false bottom, or the deep scattering layer, a massive cloud of krill, lanternfish, and jelly-like creatures that migrates up and down each day. For the deep-diving whales, this is a moving buffet. Beaked whales and pilot whales do not always need to dive to the sea floor. They can simply dive to the false bottom. However, this layer is also an acoustic camouflage. The density of the biomass is so high that it reflects sonar, creating a confusing wall of noise. Whales hunting in this layer must use specialized, high-frequency clicks to pick out individual prey from the chaotic cloud of millions of swimming bodies. It is like trying to find a single firefly in a fireworks display, requiring a level of sensory discrimination that outperforms any human technology. The impact of human noise on the deep-diving beaked whales has revealed a tragic fragility in their physiology. These whales are extremely skittish. When they hear the intense, mid-frequency ping of military sonar, they panic. Instead of ascending slowly to decompress, they dive frantically or surface too rapidly, fleeing the noise. This disruption of their natural rhythm causes nitrogen bubbles to form in their blood and tissues, a condition identical to the bends in human divers. Stranded beaked whales have been found with gas embolisms in their livers and kidneys, victims of acoustic trauma. They are creatures of the quiet deep, and the sudden introduction of industrial noise into their sanctuary has turned their own survival instincts into a lethal reaction. The body of a great whale acts as a massive biological vault for carbon, playing a crucial role in the planet's climate. A single large whale stores tons of carbon in its fatty tissues and protein. When the whale dies and sinks to the bottom, this carbon is sequestered in the deep sea for centuries, effectively removed from the atmosphere. This blue carbon cycle means that whales are swimming trees, absorbing greenhouse gases simply by growing and living. The industrial whaling of the 20th century, which removed millions of whales from the ocean, released a catastrophic amount of carbon back into the cycle, equivalent to burning vast forests. Restoring whale populations is not just an act of conservation. It is a way of healing the atmosphere, using the bodies of leviathans to lock away the heat of the world in the cold, dark mud of the abyss. In 1955, a group of strange-looking orcas washed ashore in New Zealand, and for decades, they were thought to be a genetic mutation. They had tiny eye patches and bulbous melon-shaped heads. It wasn't until 2019 that scientists confirmed these were a distinct type of killer whale, now known as Type D, or subantarctic orcas. They live in the most inhospitable waters on the planet, the roaring 40s and furious 50s, circling Antarctica. They rarely encounter humans and have likely been separated from other orcas for hundreds of thousands of years. They are specialist hunters, stealing fish from long-line boats and surviving in storms that would sink most vessels. They are the secret tribe of the orca family, hiding behind the veil of the world's roughest weather. Humpback whales are subject to cultural fads that spread through a population like a viral trend. In 1980, a single humpback whale in the Gulf of Maine was observed using a new feeding technique called lobtail feeding. Before blowing a bubble net, the whale would slam its tail onto the water, likely to stun the fish or pack the school tighter. This behavior was novel. Over the next decade, scientists watched as this technique spread. The whale's peers watched, learned, and adopted the move. Soon, nearly half the population was using the lobtail strike. It was a clear example of social learning and innovation, proving that whales do not just run on instinct. They watch each other, learn new tricks, and upgrade their skills, creating a dynamic culture that evolves over time. The jaw of a rorqual whale is a feat of dislocation. The lower jaw is not a solid bone like ours. It is composed of two curved mandibles that meet at the chin, but they are not fused. Instead, they are connected by a flexible plug of cartilage and fiber. This allows the jaws to swing apart independently, unhinging at the chin to widen the mouth even further. When the whale hits a bait ball, the jaws can splay outward, turning the mouth into a massive hoop. The jaw joints at the skull are also loose, allowing the entire mandible to drop and rotate. This loose-jawed design is what allows the blue whale to open its mouth to 90 degrees against the drag of the water, a mechanical transformation that turns a streamlined swimmer into a gaping maw. The evolutionary journey of the whale began with a creature called Pachycetus, a wolf-sized animal that lived 50 million years ago in what is now Pakistan. It lived on land, walked on four legs, and had a long tail. But inside its skull, it had a distinctive ear bone, the auditory bulla, that is unique to whales. This small bone is the link that connects the land-dwelling walker to the ocean-dwelling swimmer. Over millions of years, the descendants of Pachycetus moved into the water, their legs shrinking into fins, their nostrils migrating to the top of their heads to become blowholes. The whale is a testament to the fluidity of life, a creature that walked away from the land to return to the cradle of the ocean, carrying the ghosts of its legs hidden within its flanks. The shipping lanes of the modern world have created an acoustic fog that has blinded the Leviathans. The low-frequency rumble of container ships, tankers, and cruise liners occupies the same sonic space used by blue and fin whales to communicate. Before the industrial age, a blue whale's call could travel across an entire ocean basin, allowing a whale in Bermuda to hear a whale in Ireland. Today, that range has been reduced to perhaps a few hundred miles or less. This cocktail party effect forces whales to shout to be heard, raising the volume of their calls or stopping them altogether. Their world has shrunk, the vast global chat room of the ocean reduced to a series of isolated, noisy rooms, separating them from their kin by a wall of mechanical sound. The humpback whale displays a behavior that can only be described as altruism, acting as the vigilante of the ocean. Humpbacks have been documented repeatedly interfering in orca hunts, rushing in to save the prey. They will bellow, slash their tails, and use their massive bodies to shield seals, sunfish, and even the calves of other whale species from attacking killer whales. This behavior is instinctual but perplexing. The humpback gains nothing from saving a seal. It may be a spillover of their drive to protect their own calves, a general animosity toward their only natural predator. Regardless of the motive, the humpback acts as a guardian, a 40-ton shield that inserts itself between the hunter and the hunted, enforcing a strange kind of mercy in the cruel law of the food chain. When a southern right whale rests, it sometimes engages in headstanding. The whale positions itself vertically in the water, with its head down and its tail flukes held high above the surface. It can hold this pose for minutes at a time. Scientists believe this may be a way to regulate body temperature, or perhaps to rest the muscles used for swimming while keeping the reproductive organs cool in the air. Or it may simply be comfortable. The sight of a bay filled with the tails of sleeping whales, looking like black monoliths rising from the sea, is a surreal reminder that these creatures inhabit a three-dimensional world where up and down are choices, not mandates. Rice's whale is a tragic newcomer to science, discovered as a distinct species only in 2021. Living exclusively in the Gulf of Mexico, this sleek baleen whale was previously thought to be a subspecies of the bride's whale. It is critically endangered, with perhaps fewer than 50 individuals remaining. They live in one of the busiest industrial waterways in the world, surrounded by oil rigs, shipping traffic, and noise. Their discovery underscores how much we still have to learn. A 30-ton animal was living on the doorstep of the United States, misidentified for decades. It is a lonely lineage, clinging to existence in a warm, noisy sea, a secret that was almost lost before it was ever named. Sleep for a dolphin or an orca is a neurological marvel known as unihemispheric slow-wave sleep. Because they must consciously breathe, they cannot fall completely unconscious like a human. If they did, they would drown. Instead, they shut down one half of their brain at a time. The left hemisphere sleeps, while the right hemisphere stays awake to control breathing and watch for danger, and then they switch. This means that a dolphin is never fully asleep and never fully awake. They can swim, surface, and breathe while technically dreaming with half a mind. They live in a perpetual state of semi-consciousness, a twilight existence where the light of awareness is dimmed but never extinguished. And finally, we must recognize that the Leviathans are the memory of the Earth. They live on timescales that bridge human eras. A bowhead whale swimming today could remember the silence of the pre-industrial Arctic. A sperm whale mother teaches her calf the same migration routes her ancestors used when the continents were in different places. They are the keepers of the deep, moving through the dark with a slow, deliberate grace that ignores the frantic pace of the surface world. They are the proof that life can grow to impossible sizes and endure impossible conditions, guided by the rhythms of the moon, the tides, and the song of their own kind. As we leave the giants to their slow, rhythmic journey through the blue, let their weight settle into your mind. The ocean is vast, and it is filled with gentle monsters who are simply breathing, diving, and singing in the dark. If you enjoyed this deep drift with the Leviathans, I invite you to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments below. It helps this little vessel of curiosity find its way to other sleepy travelers. But for now, let the water hold you. Let the current carry you. You are safe. You are drifting. Good night.